From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. American colleges and universities awarded about 1.7 million bachelor's degrees in the school year ending in 2010. 57% of those receiving degrees were female, but only 18% of the women earned degrees in computer and information sciences. Reshma Sajani would like to change that. She launched an organization called Girls Who Code in 2011. Her goal is to get more girls interested in science and technology. In the next 20 years, experts estimate there will be about 1.4 million new jobs in science and technology. But there is a problem. Reshma Sajani says less than 20% of women are actually going into these professions. So there is an enormous gap. The underrepresentation of women in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, called STEM, is a problem. Reshma Sajani says it is caused by a bigger social issue. She says girls and boys perform about the same in math and science, so it is not an aptitude issue. Reshma Sajani says we live in a society that sends messages that girls should avoid these fields of study. Girls Who Code has partnered with educators, engineers, and business people. 20 girls took part in the group's first program last summer in New York City. They learned how to build websites, mobile apps, and create business plans. Still, it is only a beginning. Reshma Sajani says if our goal at Girls Who Code is to really close the STEM gap, we realize we have to teach 2 million girls how to code in the next 20 years. For VOA Learning English,
this is the
I'm
VOA Special English Technology Report. More than 350 students from 75 nations were in Sydney, Australia last month for the Imagine Cup Finals. This is the 10th year Microsoft Corporation has organized the competition. Each year, the company invites students to use their love of technology to solve some of the world's most difficult problems. Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard welcomed the competitors to Sydney and congratulated them. We look forward to seeing the fruits of your creative work this week in years to come, she said. The world does have tough problems. We are fortunate to have people like you who have a passion to solve them. Enjoy the Imagine Cup. Microsoft's Daniel Lewin also spoke at the opening ceremony. He said programs like the Imagine Cup and the DreamSpark program that you've all participated in are the foundation upon which young entrepreneurs, students like yourselves with big dreams, can make a difference in the world. This year, more than 250,000 students registered for the Imagine Cup. 106 teams were invited to the finals. Pip Marlowe is with Microsoft Australia. She was especially pleased at the number of women competing. On July 10th, Microsoft announced the winning teams at its World Festival and Awards ceremony. A team from the Ukraine won the Imagine Cup's top honor. The team's Enable Talk software program helps people who are totally or partially unable to hear. It changes sign language hand movements into speech. This is done using special gloves and a smartphone application or app. The gloves capture the sign language hand movements and send them to a smartphone app. The app compares those images to stored hand language signs and plays the words represented by the signs. The Quad Squad team will receive $25,000 to develop its idea. A team from Drexel University in the United States won first place in the game design for phone competition. The Drexel Dragons designed a game to help students better understand mathematics. And Team Tang Thai from Thailand was honored for a game that helps teach young people about the problem of deforestation. And that's the VOA Special English Technology Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our reports are at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Just how common is teen sexting? Last week, we reported on a new study of more than 1,500 internet users aged 10 to 17. It found that only 2.5% of them had sexted in the past year. It also found that only 1% of the images might violate child pornography laws. That study came from the University of New Hampshire. But another new report suggests much higher rates. Both studies defined sexting only to mean sending or receiving naked pictures. Psychologist Jeff Temple is an assistant professor at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. He says, "We found actually about 28% of teens had sexted." Mr. Temple says reports from medical offices and school officials support that finding. One of the authors that will be on our paper with our data is a pediatrician, and he certainly sees this in his office. And from talking to school personnel and teens themselves, it certainly seems like it's happening quite a bit more frequently than the 1% reported in the New Hampshire study. He also says the behavior was the same for boys and girls. We found that about a third of girls had sent a naked picture of themselves to another teen, and about a third of boys had sent a naked picture of themselves to another teen. Sexting is not the only issue involving teens and technology. A recent online family report from computer security company Norton called attention to cyber baiting in classrooms. Marion Merritt is the company's internet safety advocate. She says, "Kids may engage in purposely taunting or teasing or harassing the teacher in order to get the teacher to have some kind of reaction or response that they then hope to capture on a cell phone camera, a video, and post online where people can view it." Now, this can be incredibly embarrassing and humiliating and damaging to the reputation of a teacher. Ms. Merritt says Norton surveyed more than 2,000 300 teachers in 24 countries. What we were surprised to learn is that 1 in 5 teachers globally knows somebody that it's happened to or has had it happen to themselves. The online survey also found that 70% of young people reported having had a negative experience online. 40% rated the experience as serious, including cyberbullying, cybercrime, or being contacted by strangers. For VOA Special English,
I'm Alex Villarreal
with the VOA Special English Technology Report. Tens of thousands of people travel to Austin, Texas each year to attend the South by Southwest Festival. The festival is most famous for its music and film presentations. In recent years, it has also become one of the biggest new media events of the year. Last year, more than 14,000 people from 54 countries attended the event. It is the place to learn about promising new technologies. Margie Newman describes the event as a sea of Mac-toting, smartphone-obsessed, new media snobs on a mission to know what is next. Ms. Newman is a public relations professional in Washington, D.C. She made her 3rd trip to the South by Southwest Festival this year. She said, "A lot of people call South by Southwest Interactive the geek spring break, and that's pretty accurate." South by Southwest Interactive has seen the successful launch of several products. It helped push Twitter into mainstream popularity in 2007. In 2009, a company called Foursquare launched its mobile networking service at the festival. The service lets friends tell other friends where they are by checking in using a mobile application or a text message. Foursquare's owners say they now have more than 6.5 million users around the world. Margie Newman says quick response codes were big news at this year's festival. The codes turn URLs and text into barcode-like images that can be scanned using a mobile phone or a QR code reader. She said it looks like a scanning device used in supermarkets, but it's a square. She said people aren't using QR codes for marketing just yet. But it was very popular at South by Southwest Interactive. Cloud computing and group messaging were also popular. The 5-day festival ended March 15th. Hundreds of events were planned each day. They included speeches by some of the world's leading technology industry experts, hands-on training workshops, and many group discussions. Margie Newman said, "South by Southwest Interactive is the place to be if you are into digital new media. You don't want to miss it." For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our reports are at voaspecialenglish.com. We're also on Facebook.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. An American space company says a powerful new rocket should be ready for a test launch by the end of next year. The company is Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX. Its new rocket is called the Falcon Heavy. Company officials say it will be able to transport satellites or spacecraft weighing up to 53 metric tons into orbit. That load weight is double the capacity of NASA space shuttles. The space agency is retiring its shuttles after 30 years. Elon Musk is the chief executive officer of SpaceX. He says 53 metric tons is more than the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 737 with 136 passengers, luggage, and fuel. It's more payload capability than any space vehicle in history, he says, apart from the Saturn V. NASA used Saturn V rockets during its Apollo and Skylab programs in the 1960s and 70s. A Saturn V launched the Apollo 11 mission that landed the first humans on the moon in 1969. The rockets were removed from service in 1973, but they remain the most powerful ever built. Elon Musk says the Falcon Heavy will be the second most powerful rocket ever. He says it was designed to do more than carry satellites and other equipment into space. He says the rocket was designed to meet NASA's ratings for human flight safety. So it could someday be used to carry astronauts and other travelers into space. Mr. Musk says the Falcon Heavy could also be used for missions like carrying a robotic lander to collect samples from Mars. He says a mission like that requires a great amount of lift capability. The lander has to reach Mars and still have enough fuel to return to Earth. The first launch is planned from the company's launch site at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. A launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida, is expected in late 2013 or 14. In time, SpaceX hopes to launch 10 Falcon Heavy rockets a year. It says the rocket should reduce launch costs to about $2,000 a kilogram. That is about 1/10 the cost of carrying loads into orbit on a space shuttle. SpaceX already has a $1.5 billion deal with NASA to use a smaller rocket to transport cargo to the International Space Station. The rocket is the Falcon 9, and the deal is for after the two last shuttles, Endeavour and Atlantis, are retired this year. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more ways to learn American English and stay informed every day, go to voaspecialenglish.com. From your computer
This is the
or
VOA
mobile
Special
device.
English Development Report. We talked last week about counterfeit medicines and how the problem is especially bad in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The World Health Organization says up to 30% of the medicine sold in many developing countries is not real. It also estimates that up to 50% of the medicine sold on the internet is counterfeit. That can put people at risk even in wealthy countries that represent only a small part of the counterfeit drug market. Today, we look at what is being done to fight counterfeit drugs. Several companies are developing ways to make counterfeits easier to identify. And there are existing methods, like a machine that can quickly identify chemicals in pills to confirm if the pills are real. Other ideas include things like special tracking codes for drug packages. People could send a text message with the code and get a message back confirming that what they bought is listed in a database. Some drug makers and other companies put three-dimensional images called holograms on their products as a security device. Other anti-counterfeit efforts include the use of radio frequency identification tags. Many companies use these electronic tags to follow products through the supply chain from the manufacturer. The American Food and Drug Administration says RFID tags act like an electronic safety net to make it easier to catch counterfeits. Last July, the Food and Drug Administration advised manufacturers to add what are called physical chemical identifiers to their medicines. These are special chemicals, colorings, or tastes that counterfeiters could not easily copy. Brian Liang is with the Partnership for Safe Medicines, an organization in the United States. He says the internet is not only a place where people can get tricked into buying counterfeit drugs, it is also a place where counterfeiters can find all the materials they need to make them. He says the most important members of the counterfeit detection team are the patients themselves. He says raids on counterfeiters are often the result of information from people who bought fake medicines. Brian Liang says people who know their drugs and the effects of their drugs are the best security against fakes. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. You can find last week's report on counterfeit drugs at VOA
This is the VOA Special
Special
English Development Report. Counterfeit medicines are a widespread problem in developing countries. Like other counterfeits, they look like real products. But counterfeit drugs may contain too much, too little, or none of the active ingredients of the real thing. People do not get the medicine they need, and in some cases, the counterfeits cause tragic problems of their own. About a year ago, more than 80 children in Nigeria died after being given medicine for teething pain. And more than 20 children in Bangladesh died last year after being given acetaminophen. In both cases, the medications contained ingredients that looked, smelled, and tasted like the real thing. But the medicine in Bangladesh was produced by a local drug manufacturer that used a dangerous substitute to save money. And in the case in Nigeria, an illegal chemical dealer sold counterfeit glycerin to a drug company. That company then used the chemical to make the teething medicine. The World Health Organization says the problem with counterfeit medicines is especially bad in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The WHO estimates that up to 30% of the medicines on sale in many of those countries are counterfeit. Counterfeit medications are also a problem in the Middle East and in many countries of the former Soviet Union. The problem is less widespread among industrialized countries. The WHO says counterfeits represent less than 1% of the illegal drug market in countries like the United States, Canada, Japan, and New Zealand. But the agency also says as much as 50% of the medicine sold on the internet is counterfeit. Most people have no way to tell if medications are what they seem. The Center for Medicine in the Public Interest is a group in New York supported in part by the drug industry. It predicts counterfeit sales will reach $75 billion worldwide this year, nearly double the level of 2005. Substandard medicines are also a widespread problem in the developing world. How are they different from counterfeits? The legal difference is that counterfeit drugs are made with the purpose of misleading people. Substandard drugs are just poorly made. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. Next week, learn what is being done to fight counterfeit medicines. Transcripts, podcasts, and captioned videos of our reports can be found at VOA.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Electronics were among the most requested gifts of the 2011 Christmas holiday season in the United States. Jim Barry from the Consumer Electronics Association says tablet computers were the most popular electronic gift. Laptop computers were second. Jim Barry says the iPad continued to lead the way in the tablet market. Apple released its iPad 2 in March. The company is expected to release the iPad 3 in 2012. Tablet computers are the top of the list of what folks said they were going to buy this year. And probably north of 80% of the tablets being sold up until now have been Apple iPads. But he says the tablet market is starting to change. There are now more choices and less costly tablets available. These include the new Kindle Fire from Amazon.com. Jim Barry says e-readers were number 3 on his group's survey of holiday gift wishes, and that came as a surprise to more than a few people. Some folks thought that the popularity and success of the tablet computer would mean sales of e-book readers would go down. Well, that hasn't happened. Sales of e-book readers have more than doubled this year. We're buying lots more. The leaders there continue to be the Kindle from Amazon and the Nook from Barnes & Noble, along with the e-reader from Sony. Amazon released its Kindle Fire just in time for Christmas. The new Kindle is a touchscreen tablet. Unlike the earlier e-reader, this one is in color and lets users explore the web. The Kindle Fire sells for $199. This is several $100s less than the iPad, but about the same as people paid for the Kindle 3G wireless in 2010. So the big question on a lot of people's minds in 2011 was whether or not to wait for the price to come down. As Jim Barry put it, this is the challenge of the early adopter. You know, one of the great things about consumer electronics is that the prices get lower as the stuff gets better. And that's not true of automobiles or furniture or houses and so forth. So as the prices get lower, if you bought earlier, you may feel a little bit of that, well, I wish I had waited. He says falling prices are one of the reasons why consumer electronics do relatively well, even in a difficult economy. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Learn English and much more with our programs, lessons, and activities at voaspecialenglish.com and the VOA Learning English page on Facebook.